And breaking today, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey admits more can be done to tackle the fraud scandal in his city and the state of Minnesota as a whole. But he also claimed in the wide-ranging interview on Fox and Friends this morning that the investigation is unfairly targeting illegal migrants.
More could have been done, more can be done. And I think it makes it really clear that this is not about clamping down on fraud. The people that have been investigating the fraud just walked out of the U.S. Attorney's office. The people that have been investigating and prosecuting this fraud in the Trump administration at the U.S. Attorney's office said, you know what is happening isn't right. It's not fair.
Not fair. Joe Tayrab served nearly 4 years in the U.S. Attorney's office in Minneapolis and says the fraud was shockingly easy to pull off. He joins us now. Thank you for being here. So how do you react to the mayor in that new interview today?
Well, honestly, Sandra, his words are extremely hollow. They mean nothing to me because Democrats like Mayor Frey, but also Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison did absolutely nothing for years. It was an open secret here in Minnesota that there were tons of folks in the Somali community who were committing all this fraud. There were whistleblowers for years. And so people like Mayor Frey didn't do anything about it, and people like him should have to answer for it.
So he also said this defending past fraud probes. Listen to this.
There have been investigations into this fraud now for years. People have been prosecuted, people have been convicted, and that's the way it should be. You go to jail as an individual. Entire communities, entire populations are not held accountable for the actions of the individuals that actually did it.
All right, so how does that sit with you?
It doesn't fit at all. I mean, honestly, he didn't have anything to do with the investigations, nor did Governor Tim Walz or Keith Ellison. Fraud was rampant in Minnesota. And just letting you know, these fraudsters, it was shockingly easy, as I've said before, to commit this fraud. These organizations were supposed to provide food to kids who needed it and get reimbursed from the government. And they were saying week after week, month after month, that they were feeding thousands of children that they weren't feeding at all. They were just made up, getting checks for hundreds of thousands of dollars week after week. And so the amount of money that went out the door, millions and millions of dollars, and the former acting U.S. attorney said the amount of fraud coming out of just Minnesota is in the billions. Totally unacceptable, and people like Mayor Frey did nothing about it.
Well, this is the Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. Dates back to 2011, a meeting where he seemingly sides with alleged fraudsters. Watch.
The only way we can protect what we have is by inserting ourselves into the political arena, putting our votes where it needs to be, but most importantly, putting our dollars in the right place and supporting candidates that will fight to protect our interests.
That's right.
You can only protect our interests when we have your back, and you don't have to worry about who's behind you.
Wow. Paul Morrow reacts to his claims that he didn't take anything from convicted fraudsters. Listen here.
He took thousands in campaign donations, which came in the week subsequent to that meeting, a meeting in which he sided against his own constituents. He's the attorney for the people of Minnesota. They came in complaining that their money spigot was being shut off. He said, I'm going to clean it up. They, of course, invoked racism. That immediately got him on their side. We're Muslim migrants, and that's why they're targeting us.
Meanwhile, the American public's left wondering what the heck is going on there. Joe?
What's going on there is an absolute malpractice and abdication of his duties by Keith Ellison. You heard in that meeting that fraudsters were trying to curry favor with him, and they did actually provide money to him. So he's being very, using a lot of legalese, I would say, with him not getting any money from convicted fraudsters. He did get money from fraudsters, and he conveniently tried to give a bunch of it back. But make no mistake, Keith Ellison had an interest in not prosecuting these folks and didn't do anything to coordinate with the federal government. I was an assistant U.S. attorney for multiple years, worked for a short time on this case, and I happen to know that Keith Ellison did absolutely nothing to help us, and he has to answer for that.
Got it. Joe, I appreciate you joining us here on America Reports today. Thank you very much, sir.
The city of Minneapolis has been in focus as protests break out after the deadly ICE-involved shooting last week. We've all seen this video of the moment it all played out. Let's watch.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you.
That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former. You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Let's bring in now Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. Mr. Mayor, thank you for being here. In the immediate aftermath of that shooting, this was your response. Watch.
They are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is bull. And I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis.
In hindsight, Mr. Mayor, was that the appropriate response?
I stand by exactly what I said, and to be clear, what I was responding to was an immediate conclusion that had been drawn by the federal government where they said, one, the ICE agent was acting in self-defense, and then shortly thereafter saying that the victim was a domestic terrorist. We need to be doing everything possible right now to have a full and fair investigation, and my deep concern is when the conclusion is drawn by the government that's actually doing the investigation itself, it's much harder to trust the investigation. We need to make sure that the American people can earn and gain that trust. And yes, I think there's deep concerns with having exclusively the FBI and not our Bureau of Criminal Apprehension at the state level conducting the investigation itself. This is an entity that has police officers and law enforcement and attorneys, people that have deep experience in investigating cases involving an officer-involved shooting. And by the way, they've come to conclusions and investigated cases that have resulted in charges and a lack thereof. And so, you know, our pitch is, look, none of us should hide from the facts here. And if we're not hiding from them, then let's make sure it's a full and fair investigation.
And would you agree that no one should be jumping at conclusions until we have that investigation, and then we'll find out what facts can come to light?
Well, I'm grateful that I'm not the one investigating this, nor is the city of Minneapolis. And when you have the secretary working at the federal government saying immediately that this was an action of self-defense, when you have the federal government booting the state government from the process entirely, yeah, there's concerns associated with that. I mean, look, we've all seen the video. I don't need to pass judgments here on it. But what I do know, and this is the bottom line, is, look, I may have disagreements with some people that are part of your audience, but I hope that people can trust that I love my city. We are experiencing an extraordinary comeback. Crime is down in virtually every category, in virtually every neighborhood. Small businesses were opening, and this whole chaos that's taking place, yeah, it's setting us back. And so my ask is simple. Let us have that beautiful rebound. Let's keep the safety improvements going. Let's keep these small businesses opening. And right now, it's getting hard because, yeah, you've got people that are afraid to go into work. Schools have shut down. I mean, we've only had 2 shootings as of recent in the city this year, and one of them was the ICE situation that you just pointed out.
Would you agree, Mr. Mayor? You ask ICE to get the F out of your city. Here's the little secret. ICE, I'm sure, would like to not have to be doing the surge operations, but because of 4 years under the President Biden administration, you had an unprecedented number of illegal migrants coming across the border. Many of them turned out to be criminal illegal aliens, and now they are going after those individuals. We can show you just a litany of, scores of illegal criminal aliens that have been apprehended in the past few days that have included everyone from murders to sex assault of minors. These individuals were roaming free in your city because your policies do not cooperate with detainers, and so ICE is then going to get these people off the street. You would agree that the streets are safer without these individuals on your streets?
Look, in Minneapolis and in Minnesota, we are anti-murder, we are anti-crime, we are for improving the safety wherever we can. And by the way, we have worked with administrations, both present and past, to drive down crime. We've worked with the DEA, the ATF, the FBI to prosecute and charge violent crime. We've worked to get perpetrators of violent gun crime off the street, narcotics off the street. In fact, the work that was conducted was so successful, it resulted in the lowest number of shootings on record on, for instance, the North Side. We are willing to work with people when it's about murder and when it's about crime. But the truth is that this ain't about that. If this were about that, we'd have many important areas where there would be areas where we could work together. This, however, is the largest immigration enforcement action on record in the United States. And so I would just ask you, why is the largest scale immigration enforcement action taking place where we don't even have that many undocumented immigrants? Why would it not take place in Texas or Florida or Utah, where you do actually have those large numbers of undocumented immigrants? Because that's where it would actually make more sense. But again, if the issue is murder or crime, the answer is we do work with the federal government. In fact, we're presently doing that. We're presently doing that. So the truth is it's not about murder or crime. It's not.
You mentioned Texas and Florida. You just had a surge in Louisiana, and you didn't see any of the commotion that you are seeing now in your city because all of those states fully cooperate with ICE detainers. Just look at some of the videos, Mayor Frey, that we have seen of these protesters, many of whom you have praised. You've called them heroes for being out there exercising their First Amendment rights, but they've gone farther. They're blocking the ICE operations. They're
thousands of
take a look at some of the videos. You've seen these.
I'm happy to look at videos. I've seen it happening live.
Watch this.
So, do you want?
Shame on you! Shame! Shame! Shame!
And so that's just a sampling of it. You're seeing it in real time. You are aware that 18 U.S. Code 111 makes it a federal crime to impede, interfere, or even assault officers. And we see the protesters crossing a line of protesting, throwing rocks, hitting cars, and interfering in the federal government's view of their operation of carrying out federal immigration law enforcement.
Look, we have had perhaps tens of thousands of people peacefully protesting in the streets. And at the same time, yeah, they are going to stand up for their neighbors. And what we are seeing time and time again is unconstitutional conduct by ICE. ICE is not new. Our separation ordinance in the city is not new. ICE has been around for decades, so has our separation ordinance. What is new? What is new is the way that the Trump administration is presently conducting themselves. Now, again,
so you have
if this were about murder or we do have a lawsuit. Let's talk about that.
So legal analysts, not just on Fox News, on CNN and other networks, are saying that this holds no water. There's no basis for it. You're telling me here on Fox News that you support law enforcement removing murderers and rapists. So what's with the lawsuit?
Well, because what is happening right now through ICE is not about getting rid of murderers. What we see right now is discrimination taking place only on the basis of race. Are you Latino or are you Somali? And then it is indiscriminate thereafter. In other words, they are pulling people off the streets. They have pulled U.S. citizens off the streets. And you don't need to take my word for it. At this point, this has been very well documented. And also, you don't need to take my word for it. Listen to Trump. Trump himself is saying that this is about retribution. He's saying that there is a reckoning and a retribution that is coming. And so, again, if this were about murder or rape or crime or fraud, then, look, we have worked together, not just with the Biden administration, with the past Trump administration, with the Bush administration. Right. We have worked with a number of different administrations to successfully drive down crime.
President Trump, Mr. Mayor,
about that. And so
secured the border, which is what he ran on. Do you give him credit for securing that border? Now he is going through the interior with ICE operations to remove the criminal illegal aliens that came in that open border of the previous administration. I think at the end of the day, let me get you on record if I can, Mr. Mayor. Do you support abolishing ICE?
I do not support abolishing ICE. However, I absolutely oppose the way that this administration is conducting themselves with us. Look, there are a number of entities presently, agencies at the federal government. But isn't that what your lawsuit is about,
that are conducting
themselves? No, you should read the lawsuit. The lawsuit says that, hey, you know, ICE doing ICE stuff is not what we're talking about right now. Again, we've had ICE in our city before. We've had ICE in our state before. It is the fact that, look, right now, there's about 3,000 federal ICE agents in our city between ICE and Border Control. You know how many police officers that we have? 600. Right. The kind of duress that our city is experiencing because of this is magnified. Again, crime has been down. This is not helping. Chaos has been dramatically increased by the way that these ICE operations are taking place. And we are looking for ways to keep this city safe. I hope that people, especially viewing, can understand that we want to keep this city safe. This is not accomplishing it by any standard.
I appreciate your viewpoint. I want to get a question in and respect your time on fraud. But lastly, just one last one. You mentioned President Trump. So he is threatening to pull funding from sanctuary jurisdictions that have policies such as Minneapolis. Your reaction?
We have a separation ordinance in the city, and you know what that ordinance says? It says that I want our limited numbers of police officers focusing on keeping people safe, arresting perpetrators of violent crimes, stopping car thefts from taking place. That's what I want them focusing on. You know what I don't want them focusing on? Hunting down a dad that just dropped his kids off at daycare, is about to go work a 12-hour shift, who happens to be from Ecuador. That guy makes our city a better place. So again, if we're talking about arresting violent criminals, Minneapolis does not oppose that, but that's not what is taking place in the streets of our city. People who are American citizens.
I appreciate the compassion.
I want to say this again. American citizens are being taken off our streets right now, and I hope any American citizen out there can understand how concerning that is.
I appreciate
freedom.
Your
we
compassion,
should be about freedom in this country. We should be about liberty. And when you are an American citizen that is being picked up by a federal agent of any administration, we should all be saying, you know what, let's take a beat, let's think this through. Maybe this isn't right.
There's two sides to this story. You mentioned an Ecuadorian migrant. Are you familiar with Victoria Eileen Harwell? An Ecuadorian illegal immigrant in August of 2024, driving drunk, crashed head-on into Victoria Harwell, killing her. Her 14-year-old daughter survived, and her sister. ICE released her, local Hennepin County released her not once but twice and didn't cooperate with ICE detainers. Why not, since you're in favor of removing them, cooperate with ICE? Whether you have this sanctuary policy that the DHS says it is, you call it, a separation ordinance. Why not just cooperate and make it safer for everyone involved, the community, the officers, and even the migrants?
My position here is pretty straightforward, and that's this. If you commit a crime, if you commit fraud, if you commit a carjacking or a murder, you should be investigated, charged, prosecuted, held accountable, and yes, arrested and put in jail. That is my position if you commit a crime and you are a problem on the streets of the city of Minneapolis that has made us less safe. What I am saying is that a lot of the people that ICE is picking up right now in our city are not a problem for Minneapolis. They've opened businesses. They've been here for longer than I've been here. They contribute so beautiful and greatly to our city. They have families here. They're our neighbors, and yeah, we love them. We love them and we care about them. And I hope that people throughout the country can understand that, you know, we got to be thinking about other people as if it were ourselves. You know, what would we do in these situations? How would we handle ourselves? And, you know, we care deeply about our immigrant population. We care deeply about everybody in our city. And what we're seeing right now is the kind of chaos that is being caused by this massive influx of ICE agents isn't helpful.
Let me just turn quickly, and we so appreciate your time, to the issue of fraud. You recently said fraud is real. There's convictions have been done, and you say that Governor Walz has taken measures. But you also said that, you know, more could have been done. Those were your comments on the Sunday show where you had an interview on Sunday. And my question to you is that sufficient to the Minnesota taxpayers for whom billions was stolen to just say more could have been done? Would you like to address the taxpayers and weigh in a little bit more on where this fraud investigation goes?
I would like to address it. More could have been done, more can be done. And I think it makes it really clear that this is not about clamping down on fraud, these ICE arrests we're seeing in our city, when the people that have been investigating the fraud just walked out of the U.S. Attorney's Office. The people that have been investigating and prosecuting this fraud in the Trump administration at the U.S. Attorney's Office said, you know what is happening isn't right. It's not fair. It's not, I mean, what is happening is not okay, and they all walked out. And so, again, this ain't about clamping down on fraud when the investigators themselves just left.
So Governor Walz has decided he's not going to run for re-election. Does Attorney General Keith Ellison bear some responsibility for why this fraud was so widespread and was able to go on for so long without being noticed?
Look, there have been investigations into this fraud now for years. People have been prosecuted, people have been convicted, and that's the way it should be. When you commit a crime in this country, you are held accountable and you go to jail as an individual. You go to jail as an individual. Entire communities, entire populations are not held accountable for the actions of the individuals that actually did it. And so that's where my position is. And again, if we care about the investigation of these crimes, and I do you find it concerning that all of the people that were actually investigating and prosecuting this crime just walked out? Do you find that concerning?
We just cover it, and we see where the facts lead us, and we will report on it. And that is why we so greatly appreciate your time and having you come in and weigh in on these things. I'm sure that's the case there, Griff. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Jacob Frey, Mayor of Minneapolis, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
So meanwhile, on the Hill, there's a new push now from Senate Republicans about fraud against fraud. A new bill would allow deportation for fraudsters regardless of citizenship. Lawmakers say the Fraud Accountability Act would have nationwide reach, and Bill Maloogian is digging into this. What would it do? What would it say? Bill, good morning to you.
Yeah, Bill, good morning to you as well. Ever since this Minnesota fraud scandal started taking over the headlines, we've heard a lot of Republicans out there pitching this idea of denaturalizing and deporting anybody convicted in these fraud schemes. And now there's some brand new legislation designed to do just that. So Republican Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn has introduced this new bill. It's called the Fraud Accountability Act. What it would do is change U.S. law to allow any naturalized Americans convicted of any type of felony fraud to have their U.S. citizenship stripped away and also be deported. Now, the bill has 6 other Senate GOP co-sponsors, including Senators Cotton, Cornyn, Hagerty, Budd, Graham, and Kramer. And Senator Blackburn explained to me why she put forward this bill.
Providing this avenue so that these individuals who would come here and defraud the taxpayer are going to be removed from the country and do it in a more efficient and expedited way.
Do you expect any Senate Democrats to support this?
I would be honored to have them support it, and I think they should support it. When you look at, why would anybody be pro-fraud?
But if the bill passes the Senate, it would then head over to the House. And that is where we caught up with several Democrats who, unsurprisingly, are not fans of the idea of stripping citizenship away from anyone.
I think it's unconstitutional and illegal. I wish we would just move past this stuff about trying to strip citizenship away from people.
I think so long as the Republican Party and the Trump administration is using ICE to attack American citizens and shoot mothers in the face, I'm not willing to have a conversation with them about any other bad faith attempts to terrorize U.S. citizens.
Who the hell knows? These guys wanted to denaturalize the new mayor of New York City, so I don't put any credibility in what they're saying about denaturalization.
And Senator Blackburn's bill would apply to any type of felony fraud conviction, whether it's against a private person, a corporation, or the government. The bill is also retroactive, covering any felony fraud convictions going all the way back to September of 1996. Bill?
All right, thanks, Bill. Watching it for us, Bill Maloogian, live on the Hill. Thank you, Bill. Yep.
Told you we were going to be watching Minneapolis, and we have some new information. Department of Homeland Security sources telling Fox News the ICE agent who was hit by Renee Nicole Good's car suffered internal bleeding in his torso. That is the same Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent who was seriously wounded last June when he was dragged by a car during a attempted arrest. Yeah, a car rammed him and then dragged him. And by the way, there was street camera footage of some of that. The CBS local station, WCCO, covered that story last June extensively. We'll keep you posted on the situation as we get new information. Meanwhile, there's this. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, you know him, he cusses a lot, joined Fox and Friends this morning and said he stands by his original comment saying that ICE should get out of his city.
In hindsight, Mr. Mayor, was that the appropriate response?
I stand by exactly what I said, and to be clear, what I was responding to was an immediate conclusion that had been drawn by the federal government where they said, one, the ICE agent was acting in self-defense, and then shortly thereafter saying that the victim was a domestic terrorist. We need to be doing everything possible right now to have a full and fair investigation, and my deep concern is when the conclusion is drawn by the government that's actually doing the investigation itself, it's much harder to trust the investigation. We need to make sure that the American people can earn and gain that trust.
Do you think he studied before he said all that? Anyway, a CNN segment from 2016 is now viral. It's called A Day with ICE in the Sanctuary City of Chicago. CNN was not criticizing the agency. Instead, it touted exclusive access to the ride-alongs on several ICE raids.
Under the cloak of darkness in Chicago,
Tack one, guys.
An Immigration and Customs Enforcement team gears up for another long day, pursuing undocumented immigrants who have been convicted of crimes in the U.S. ICE agents mistakenly arrest the target's brother.
In the process of talking to him in the vehicle, he then said, oh, no, I'm actually so-and-so. Who you're looking for is over here, this other address. He led us to that address, and we were able to actually arrest the individual.
You have evidence, right, that he's using a fake identity, or?
That is correct. We believe he's been using a U.S. citizen's identity to live and work. He has an Illinois driver's license. Third target, he has an unauthorized use of a weapon, which was a firearm. He has a couple DUIs. He is a criminal. He has an extensive criminal history. And by taking him out of the community, it's making the community safer. And that's ICE's purpose, is to focus on criminals and community safety by taking these recidivist criminals out of our communities.
Well, as a journalist, I saw you really leaning in there. What are you? What's going
it's
through your
curious.
mind?
Yeah, I mean, like the game's changed, right? The language changed, the positions have changed. I think we've learned a lot about Minneapolis over the past 5 years, going back to George Floyd. And one thing that I learned about its police department, based on its population, I wonder if they're understaffed or
100%.
like less than full civil support. Minneapolis has a population of 428,000. They have 600 sworn officers. Oakland, California has relatively the same amount population-wise. They have 700. Wichita, Kansas, 650. Tulsa, Oklahoma, 800. New Orleans, fewer people, 1,000 cops. Miami, Florida, about the same, 2,000 cops. Now, you could argue that New Orleans and Miami have a lot more civic events that come to their city. Maybe they need that, but that was just something I was very curious to learn earlier today. I think the other thing that we need to wise up to is what ICE Watch is all about. And I don't think we've got a firm grasp on that just yet for Minneapolis. And the reason we need to understand it is because ICE is coming to New York, and they're going to be in the 5 boroughs. They're going to be in Nassau County. They're going to be in Suffolk County. And a lot of what we're watching in Minnesota is coming to the city, and we need to understand what's happening. And if you think the protests on the streets of Minneapolis are something else, wait till you see what happens here in Gotham City. On Sunday afternoon, fairly mild day for the winter, on 5th Avenue, you had thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people in a very peaceful civil protest walking down 5th Avenue. That's just a small sliver of what's to come in New York very soon. And I would dare predict that it's only weeks away.
All right, we don't have time for me to go through this. I did it on the Faulkner Focus, but Emily, the manual. The instruction manual for the protesters. How to ram a car, how to keep a low center of gravity and push up toward the face of somebody with explosive power who's an ICE agent to knock that officer off a suspect. Those details and how to do this. The New York Post reviewed an Instagram post last June by Minnesota ICE Watch. Those are the things. And look at how long that list is.
It reminds me of, not that I've seen one personally, but a guerrilla tactical playbook. It's about how to assault, how to engage in felonious behavior. But interestingly, in all of that training, I didn't see a primer on American law, which is what got an individual into trouble a couple days ago. My prayers are with that ICE agent. I hope he's recovering from his internal injuries. The fact that he got back, by the way, into service after being injured the first time speaks to the tenor and the commitment and the dedication of these brave men and women that are in uniform every day, despite having for them to undergo training of daily assaults in addition to executions of warrants and targeted searches and arrests of recidivists, homicidal maniacs and sodomists and child rapists and worse. When ICE comes to this city, to this borough, I will thank them and pave the way for them. I am so grateful that they have my best interests at heart, and it is shameful that CNN and other mainstream medias not only have forgotten what happened in 2016 when they dared to semi-objectively cover them, but also what we saw their knee-jerk reaction was in the wake of what happened after that person was shot. Right. The headlines that flooded my inbox were jumping to legal and cultural conclusions that are patently unacceptable and, most importantly, totally wrong. And it also came out of the mouth of that mayor who doubled down on our network today. I'm grateful he came on our network, but it goes to show that he underscored his comments. He's not walking back from jumping to conclusions and leading the radical rhetorical effort. That is why people think they can get in their cars and get away with doing horrific things and thinking it's no big deal on their way to get milk from the store. It is, and he's the problem.
Well, look, it's monetized and organized.
Yes.
Complete with instructions. In focus now, border czar Tom Homan. Glad to have you on the program today. Let's start with some big numbers that I want to get you to comment on. 2.5 million people have left this country, either by DHS removing them or they've self-deported. Talk to me, among them, how many were criminals, and what kind of success are you having?
Well, as far as the self-deportations, ones left on their own, I don't have that data, but I can tell you we're about 650 to 660 actual deportation. We actually put hands on somebody and removed them. And the latest numbers I've seen, about 70% of everybody we're arresting are criminals. So, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of criminal, public safety threat, illegal aliens that we have deported. Actually arrested and deported. So, of course, every criminal alien, public safety threat we take off the street makes the community much safer. So President Trump's keeping his promise to American people, making this country safe again.
Yeah, and by that math, I'm looking at about 400,000 people then that would have had criminal records. That's a tremendous amount so far, but you've got so many more to do. Talk to me about the operation on the ground in Minneapolis and how much more complicated it just got. You've got Border Patrol and then another line of people, these, additional law enforcement types that come in and help you work those cases simultaneously so your men and women can continue to go after the bad guys.
Well, absolutely. And look, the agitators, what have they accomplished? They've accomplished nothing. We're still doing our job. We're out there last night. We're out there today. We're going to be out there every day. And we're adding more resources, more law enforcement officers to that city. And one of the parts of that increase in officers to that city is to arrest the people who cross that line, people who violate 18 U.S.C. 111, interference, impeding, assaulting. We're going to have a team of people there who's going to concentrate on that. So we're going to continue arresting those agitators, and I'm pushing hard. Let's post agitators on TV. Let's announce every day who's been arrested for interfering and impeding with our officers. Look, this is a dangerous job. It's always has been a dangerous job. I've done this for a long time. But the hateful rhetoric from people like the mayor and the governor and members of Congress, I said back in March, Harris, I think it was on your show, if the hateful rhetoric doesn't decrease, there's going to be bloodshed. Right. And unfortunately, I was right. And I'm telling you here today, it's not over. Now the rhetoric is even tripled. Now they're saying they're murderers. They went beyond Nazis and secret police. Now they're saying he's murdering people. Death threats against me alone have tripled. I mean, I had one yesterday, which is a little different. They don't want to kill me. They want to kill my family. No. Tear my soul out so I suffer the rest of my life. These people are unhinged, but they need to know we're going to keep doing this job because we're arresting the worst of the worst. And are we arresting illegal aliens with no criminal history? We absolutely are. If we find them looking for these targets, they're going to be arrested. If the mayor
because
and the
they are here illegally.
If they want less of us in the street, then let us in the damn jail where we can arrest a public safety threat and the safety and security of the jail. You release them in the street, that forces us into the street to do this.
All right, I want to get to this, too. The New York Post reviewed an Instagram posting from last June by Minnesota ICE Watch, the anti-ICE group Renee Nicole Good was part of before she lost her life. The group issued an instruction manual. So this is the constellation of information she was privy to. And all of the angst and the violence and all that you're seeing, some of it is directed and some of it is instructioned, followed. It gives directions, this manual, on how to disrupt the official duties of federal law enforcement. One tactic it shows is pushing or pulling an officer off a suspect. It advises to, quote unquote, keep a low center of gravity and push up with the explosive power. All instructions to break an officer's grip on an arrestee. Another quote, try striking the grip. It then warns this can get construed as assault in court. It also encourages pressuring officers to release suspects by surrounding them, swarming them, blocking them, and or using their vehicles and chanting, let them go. The manual, Tom Homan, warns these may be crimes when in fact they are all federal offenses. So it could be a crime. They're all crimes. They're federal offenses. The last page of the manual actually offers this illustration. Please look up at your screen. It's protesters breaking the law by obstructing arrest. Most of that advice, straight up felonies, Tom Homan. Your reaction?
Well, I just left the meeting about 20 minutes ago here at the White House. I can't say a lot, but let me say this. Okay. We are aware of this coordinated effort. We are aware that this is being financed. We are aware that there are actual groups well coordinated to attack the men and women of ICE and to try to prevent them from doing their jobs. Accountability's coming because we're working very closely with DOJ, the FBI, HSI. We're doing a deep dive into this. We'll follow the money. We'll follow these groups. We'll investigate these groups. Justice is coming to these people.
Border Czar Tom Homan, I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Democrats now appear to be turning on each other as anti-ICE outrage boils over. The entire Progressive Caucus vowing to vote against any government funding bill that has money for ICE. And some of their colleagues say that's a terrible idea.
Our caucus members will oppose all funding for immigration enforcement in any appropriation bills until meaningful reforms are enacted to end militarized policing practices.
I certainly do not support defunding ICE. We cannot do that. We don't want to shut down the government. We do not want to defund ICE.
All right, let's bring in Democratic strategist Julian Epstein and Tiffany Smiley, former Republican U.S. Senate candidate and Endeavor PAC founder. Welcome to you. Julian, I'll start with you first. So where are Democrats on this? Are they calling to defund ICE?
Well, they're split, Sandra, and good afternoon. I think defund the police didn't work out so good the first time. It's not going to work out much better the second time. This is political suicide if Democrats go down this road. It's not only bad politics. We've known in polling since 1968 that this sort of anarchy and violence on street protests and anti-police rhetoric has been bad politics for any party that participates in it. But what is happening, in my opinion, in Minnesota with the protests is in many cases illegal. You have every right to protest immigration law and immigration enforcement. You don't have a right to attack law enforcement. You don't have a right to obstruct law enforcement. And I think Democrats have lost the plot here. Rather than discouraging that kind of behavior, they are actively encouraging that kind of behavior. It's toxic to our polity. It's toxic to our system. It's completely anti-democratic. And again, I think the Democratic Party has lost the plot here. It's fine to protest immigration law and immigration enforcement. It is not fine to commit violence against law enforcement, which is what many of these protesters are doing.
It does seem, Tiffany, that there's a brewing war over this, seeing these calls to defund ICE yet again. Although Mayor Frey was on Fox earlier today, and he says he does not back abolishing ICE. He says this.
I do not support abolishing ICE. However, I absolutely oppose the way that this administration is conducting themselves with us. Right now, there's about 3,000 federal ICE agents in our city between ICE and Border Control. You know how many police officers that we have? 600. Right. The kind of duress that our city is experiencing because of this is magnified.
It's not clear to me based on that what he is calling for. Tiffany?
Yeah, and perhaps they're in your city for a reason. It is immigration custom enforcement. So clearly there are some bad actors, some criminals in that area that need to be dealt with, and that's exactly what ICE is doing. Julian, perhaps you should phone into your party, because as Axios was reporting, some are even calling on Hakeem Jeffries to get ready to brawl. Whatever that means going into the future. It's disappointing, but it's sadly not surprising to see Democrats want to do everything possible to make ICE's job harder. They want to restrict funding or cut funding. They want to put more restrictions on ICE. They're even pushing for another partisan political impeachment against Secretary Noem. So the Democrat Congress of today is the most extreme anti-American Congress, I believe, in our nation's history. And they have a lot of soul searching to do. When you look at the facts of what happened in Minnesota, the video footage clearly shows that this woman was impeding ICE agents throughout the day, and then she chose to use her vehicle as a weapon. The Democrats are trying to normalize this. They're trying to say that this is okay. Meanwhile, vehicular assaults on ICE agents are going up year after year. This last year, there were 66 to the previous year where there were only 2. Okay. The Democrats are saying this is normal, stand up and fight. And it's a tragedy on both sides.
Right. Let me get Julian back in here because, it does seem that Democrats, when put on the spot, if they're not choosing a side, they're non-committal. Here's Chuck Schumer on ICE funding. Listen.
Do you think that Congress should withhold funding for DHS until there are reforms in place for ICE?
As I said, that's one of the major issues that the appropriators are confronting right now before the bill comes up.
I mean, to Julian, to your defense, I know Tiffany was calling on you to say more. I mean, you said yourself you believe it's political suicide for Democrats to move forward with these calls to defund or abolish ICE. I'll give you a final thought here.
Yeah, so Democrats are staring at their shoes. The leaders are staring at their shoes. They stared at their shoes on the welfare fraud that was going on in Minnesota. They're staring at their shoes in terms of telling the police to enforce public order. They're staring at their shoes in terms of telling their followers not to engage in violent conduct. This is exactly when you need a strong Democratic Party to step up and say, hey, First Amendment protest is right. Violent activity is wrong. We are going to enforce public order. And there's an arrogance, there's an authoritarianism that is occurring here on the political left. The public voted for closed borders. The public voted for deportations. And the arrogance of local officials and local protesters saying we are going to overturn the public will and impose our ideology because we have this universalist notion, this universalist ideology. The idea that we're going to impose that in the public, even when the public voted against it, is authoritarianism and arrogance and narcissism.
All right, I appreciate the conversation. Thanks to both of you for joining us. All right,
thanks, Sandra.
Okay, John?
Sandra, President Trump set to speak at the White House any moment now. We will take you there coming up next.
All right, joining me now from Minneapolis is U.S. Border Patrol Commander-at-Large Gregory Bavino. Thank you so much for being with us. You've served at CBP for a long time, Greg. You've been there since 1996, I believe. What's the difference between how things are being handled today versus how they were handled by other presidents?
Sure, Will. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you. You know, 30 years ago, back in the 90s and early 2000s, Will, we worked together. And that was from the president all the way down to those state and local law enforcement agencies. We worked together. It was almost a coalition to keep communities safe. I could rely on a state and local agency to advise me or notify me if there was a criminal, illegal alien anywhere in their jurisdiction. That was anywhere, anytime. Contrast that, Will, with what's happening now, say here in Minneapolis, is we have to go out there and find those individuals ourselves, because that cooperation in those sanctuary jurisdictions, which President Trump and Secretary Inome have outlined time and time again, those sanctuary jurisdictions refuse to do that. The contrast is absolutely amazing. And also, Will, take a look at those jurisdictions that do cooperate with us, i.e. Louisiana. We always go back to Louisiana. We just got back from Louisiana. The cooperation we received there in Louisiana was fantastic, and we got done what we needed to get done there in New Orleans and the state of Louisiana with almost zero violence.
So just to be clear, when you were operating at CBP under President Clinton and President Obama, it was different than what you're dealing with today when it comes to cities like Minneapolis and states like Minnesota?
Absolutely. Day and night difference. I served in California and other locations. As you know, California is now a sanctuary state, but back then, the state and locals in California would work hand in hand with Border Patrol, ICE, and other law enforcement agencies to remove these criminals before they became a problem. And that's all we're after. That's what we want to do here in Minneapolis and any other sanctuary jurisdiction. Let's remove these people before they can continue to hurt American citizens and American interests.
And one more point of clarification. Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, says that the reason you're in Minneapolis is because of politics, because it's a blue city inside of a blue state led by Democrats, that it is a political maneuver by President Trump to surge ICE and CBP into Minnesota instead of, for example, Texas. Now, you just heard probably White House Border Czar Tom Homan say the reason is those numbers aren't necessary in Texas because Texas cooperates. Instead, Minneapolis is releasing criminal illegal aliens, requiring then that you and ICE, CBP and ICE, put more agents into that city. And it's had a spiral effect, I know, because now further agents have been deployed to Minnesota to deal with agitators. Is that how you would describe the numbers and why they are way they are in Minnesota?
Yes, it's about crime. Crime, crime, crime. I was just briefed before I came on your show, Will, just a few minutes ago, and 3 illegal aliens, I believe one from Thailand, one from Central America, and I believe one from Zambia, were apprehended just a few hours ago. All 3 had significant rap sheets. All 3 violent assaulters served multiple prison terms. They were let loose to roam the streets here in Minnesota. So this mission is a crime mission first and foremost. That's why we're here, is to go after those violent criminals, those fraudsters, you know, the billions of dollars in fraud that's happened here in Minnesota, Minneapolis. That is why we're here, plain and simple.
Okay. Commander Vivino, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And Josh Holmes joins us now. Josh, I saw you on the panel last night. There's lots of news to get to. You know Minnesota very well, so this has been going on for a couple of weeks now. That doesn't count the fraud. The fraud is what we were talking about before. Now this has erupted. Do you see anyone going maybe to try to turn down the temperature, de-escalate here?
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice. Oh, hey, just a fellow Minnesotan talking about my home state again, Dana. I must confess there are easier times to do that. The Vikings missed the playoffs, and Jacob Frey and the governor have turned what was a terrific city into just an absolute lawless chaos. You got to remember why everybody's here. The fraud started all of this. They presided over $8 billion of fraud, refused to enforce the law, wanted to keep the money train going. And then on top of that, they have a sanctuary city where they refuse to enforce immigration laws. And you've seen the lists that have come out of ICE. I think that last interview highlighted a couple of them. They're arresting extremely dangerous criminals, pedophiles, rapists, all of these things. And yet they've created this opposition to that. And by doing so, they've created chaos in the streets.
Okay, let me roll 2 sound bites here that I think can get to the root of this. First of all, number 2, guys, this is the police chief in Minneapolis. I did not know that Minneapolis had so few cops. You know, their population is 4,280. They got about 600 sworn officers today. Here's the police chief on that.
I have been concerned for several weeks about the escalating situation that's been unfolding on our streets. Hours before this woman was killed, I was telling people very publicly that I was worried a tragedy was going to happen. I'm concerned that the rhetoric keeps escalating, that the tensions keep rising, that we are headed towards yet another tragedy and a potential trigger to what happened here yet again in 2020.
Josh, I'll go ahead. You go ahead and answer that, then we'll get to the soundbite from the president here.
Yeah, well, look, I've got a lot of sympathy for the police chief. He's doing the best he can. He's trying to balance a boss and the mayor who is doing everything he can do to ramp things up. A governor who said that they're at war. The state of Minnesota is at war with the federal government, and he's just trying to do his job. Remember, this is a police force that had an incredible amount of reduction and potential reduction proposed by a city council that it wants this kind of lawlessness after the George Floyd riots. So he's got his hands tied in a lot of ways. It's good that federal agents are there. I think I've talked to a couple of cops personally in Minneapolis, and they're thankful, frankly, that they have federal agents there that are doing the job.
So then broadening it out, as President Trump did last night, he talked about federal payments to sanctuary cities across the country. Watch.
We're not making any payments to sanctuary cities or states having sanctuary cities because they do everything possible to protect criminals at the expense of American citizens, and it breeds fraud and crime and all of the other problems that come. So we're not making any payment to anybody that supports sanctuary cities.
And he said, Josh, that would start on February 1st.
Yeah, I mean, the president doesn't have any choice here, Dana. They have entirely tied the hands of the federal government. Why would you send more money? They have given every indication that they're going to use that money for the same things that they've been using it that wasted $8 billion in the first place. Recall after the Nick Shirley report, where they went to all of these Leering centers, as they were spelled, and checked to see if there were kids and found that there were none of them. There was a whole defense from the state of Minnesota about, no, he just didn't, he came in off hours, or no, this one was shut down, and the story changed 1,000 times. They have every intent on continuing business as usual, and it would be absolutely chaotic and counterproductive for a president to do anything but cut the funding.
Well, and one thing that money talks. Okay, so we'll see if that makes a difference. Thank you so much, Josh.
Thank you,
Great
Josh.
to see you this morning.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.